What's going on, bud? We got some news from around the NFL, some head coaching moves, some positions being filled, and some interesting poachaways, possibly, from my Detroit Lions. Lions defensive coordinator Kelvin Sheppard to interview for Dolphins head coaching job. Sources say, this comes to us from CBS News. What does this mean? Is this real? This could be a little bit of a Rooney Rule type situation. I don't know, but we will take a look at it. And if this were to happen, being a Detroit Lions fan, what would our options be for the potential Kelvin Sheppard to Miami? Miami taking a swing possibly here. We will find out. We will take a look at CBS Sports as well as Pride of Detroit. And then if we got time before we get too long-winded, we're going to talk about 6 coordinators of the Lions could potentially go after to replace Kelvin Sheppard if he goes to Miami. But before we get into all that, guys, could you do me a rock solid thing? Could you go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you're new here? Ring that notification bell. Why do you want to ring that notification bell? Because, in case you didn't know, we go live Monday through Friday. That's right, 5 days a week from 10 to 11 a.m. right here at youtube.com, Mad Hatter Nation. Guy, they're asking me, Guy, where are you? Well, they're people in the chat all the time. It's a fun time, dude. Come, hang out, give us your takes, dude. Maybe you could change my mind on a thing or two. You never know. But the best way to do that is keep that notification bell turned on. It's going to send you a notification directly to your phone. Like this video if you enjoy what we do here. Share it around with all your friends if you think we make some good points. And if you really enjoy what we do, brother, could you drop a hype on this video? That's like what you can do to help us little guys out here. We're trying to take the fight to the evil empire, trying to punch up out of our class here. And you dropping a hype, my guy, that's an OG move right there that you can do for me. I appreciate it. Let's talk about a little bit of news here, guys. CBS News, Lions coordinator, Detroit Lions, Kelvin Sheppard is expected to interview for the Miami Dolphins head coaching job after serving 1 season as defensive coordinator, a source told CBS News. It's unclear when the interview will take place. Miami has not yet announced if it interviewed Sheppard. ESPN Jeremy Fowler reported the Dolphins requested an interview with Shep, who played for the team in 2014 and 2015 seasons. The Georgia native was hired by the Lions in 21 as the outside linebackers coach. He emerged as a top candidate for defensive coordinator positions last year after Aaron Glenn was hired by the New York Jets. As a Lions fan, that is not really the guy that I would have that I was kind of hoping would be the successful of the 2 coordinators hired away. Namely because he wasn't in the division coaching, giggle Willie, not too wild about that. And the contrast between the success of the first year between Aaron Glenn and small PB Benedict Arnold, Osama Ben Johnson, the trader in the Windy City. I mean, we're talking Ben Johnson getting rumored to possibly be coach of the year, and Aaron Glenn, at one point, not too long ago, maybe 5 days ago, they were talking Aaron Glenn possibly being fired after 1 year in New York. And it's hard to build a counter argument as to why they would keep him. I could understand every avenue, right? The Lions were eliminated from playoff contention in 2025 after they finished with a 9-8 record. Yes, it sucks, but we were still above 500, and being a Lions fan for the past almost 40 years, being a plus 500 team and calling it a negative feels very weird. Sheppard, a 2011 NFL draft pick, was selected by the Buffalo Bills for playing for Indianapolis, Miami, New York, and Detroit. He turned to a coaching career in 2020, serving as Louisiana State University's Director of Player Development. The Lions were already working to find their next offensive coordinator after parting ways with Johnny No Screens. Don't throw the screen, Johnny Mo! Johnny Mo Screens. Morton joined the Lions ahead of the 2025 season after serving as the passing game assistant for the Denver Broncos. Meanwhile, the Dolphins fired former head coach Mike McDaniel after 4 seasons. As of January 12th, the team interviewed Seattle Seahawks offensive coordinator Clint Kubiak for the position, according to its website. I have also seen a little bit now because, look, here's the thing. I get it. What Miami's doing here, the trend in the NFL, right? Thanks to Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan. You want to strike on a young, offensive-minded talent at the coaching position and give them an opportunity, right? Because if you can be ahead of the curve, Sean McVay, you should be a wildly successful franchise if it hits. That's what the Dolphins try to do with Mike McDaniel. You know what I'm saying? The problem is the NFL is kind of shifting a little bit more back towards defense, right? A little bit more towards defense wins championships. Look at how Houston's going to make a Super Bowl run with that defense, right? So Miami may be trying to think outside the bun a little too hard, right? They maybe trying to do the inverse instead of the young, oh boy, what did we do here? Sorry about that edit there. We had some camera issues. So what Miami could be trying to do here is the inverse to the offensive mentality of strike on a young, talented offensive coach. And they're trying to do the inverse, try strike on a young defensive head coach, get out ahead of everybody else, maybe try and set the tone, bring in the revolutionary kind of approach to the game that Dan Campbell has. You know, maybe they're looking at it like, hey, why wait for Ben Johnson to be there for 2 years when we could just get him right now in relation to Kelvin Sheppard, right? Maybe try and get out ahead of it. Personally, I do think Kelvin Sheppard is going to be a successful coach in this league, whether it be a coordinator or he ascends to a head coaching position. As a Lions fan, I can tell you that my exposure to the individual of Kelvin Sheppard is he's a leader of men, a natural-born leader, a vocal leader, and a good example for people to follow. I myself, as a Lions fan, was very concerned that Kelvin Sheppard is going to end up getting the head coaching job at Louisiana State University, being the LSU Tigers' next head coach, because he is such a good leader of men. And if you want to follow the cascade down to from football into culture, instead of him leading professional athletes, grown men, it almost makes sense to boost the culture up by having Kelvin Sheppard help develop, cultivate, and grow maturing young minds. Kelvin Sheppard could be a wildly successful collegiate head coach, both as a coach in the numbers, the wins, and the players going into the draft, as well as culturally downstream, the generational effect that a guy like that could have leading young, moldable minds at the collegiate level. That didn't end up happening, but the NFL is still saying, hey, this guy has the chops to be a head coach. Miami taking a swing on him. Some people might say, I'm not saying it, others are saying it, some people might say it, some might say it, that it could be just a little wee bit of a Rooney Rule type hiring because, you know, when you kind of look at it, there isn't a whole lot of black assistant head coaches right now that are at the top end of the list. A lot of the guys are, you know, Mike Kafka and Kevin Stefanski, John Harbaugh, you know what I mean? So you could make an argument that Kelvin Sheppard's going to be outside of Brian Flores, who he brings a whole bunch of baggage kind of pertaining to the Rooney Rule. Kelvin Sheppard, unfortunately, could just be getting tokenized this go-around. Personally, I don't think he's there yet to be a head coach, and there is a little bit of article here we can kind of back it up with, right? Lions defensive coordinator Kelvin Sheppard receives interview request for Dolphins head coaching job. According to several national reports, Miami has reached out to the Lions, right? Sheppard is just 1 year into his role as defensive coordinator after taking over for Aaron Glenn in 2024. While the Lions' defense regressed in several statistics this past year, most notably allowing 24.3 points per game after allowing just 20.1 last year, Sheppard has remained in good graces of his players and coaching staff. Sheppard has great command of the room, and his charismatic personality is part of the reason he's been a great culture fit in Detroit. If you guys don't know, we do have a lot of big, goofy personalities in our coaching ranks. Some have questioned whether Sheppard deserves a second season as the Lions defensive coordinator following the regression on that side of the ball. But Dan Campbell offered a vote of confidence heading into the week 18 of the season. And to that point, if you watch the live show Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. here at youtube.com, you would have heard me make the argument that even Kelvin Sheppard made. In a Kirby Joseph-less defense, your mistakes are going to be amplified. Kirby Joseph has led the NFL in turnovers and takeaways since entering the league. He was on par with Ed Reed, a Hall of Fame safety for the Baltimore Ravens, right? We all remember Ed Reed. When you have basically a whole season without Kirby Joseph, and then you couple that with no Terrion Arnold, no Brian Branch, No real dominant pass rush to help Aiden Hutchinson. Yes, Al-Qadim Muhammad had double-digit sacks, but he's on the wrong side of 30. And he's no longer under contract with the Detroit Lions. Kirby Joseph was Mr. Fix-It on the back end. Kelvin Sheppard said it period point blank. So, of course, his defense is going to slip up a little bit when you don't have the all-world Superman back there. He did, though, coordinate a relatively good defense. There were at times when the pressure was on that they got off the field. Unfortunately, as a Lions fan, I can tell you that there are more times than not that we couldn't get off the field on third down. Kelvin Sheppard is a real good, young, emerging candidate. This is not to take away from Kelvin Sheppard. I just don't think you're quite there yet, bud. And as much as I hate to say it because it's very insulting, you're getting tokenized this go-around. Now, that being said, you might as well go ahead and make the best of it. Wine and dine and go on trips. Dude, who doesn't want to go... If you are watching this and you are not in our hemisphere up here or in the northern climate of the United States, I'm in Michigan, bro. It's where the Detroit Lions are. 37 degrees and windy right now. Feels like -1 outside. It's cold. I would love to go to Miami for a couple of days, all expenses paid, to go for an interview for a job that I know I'm not going to get. Yeah, why not, dude? Take advantage of it. Enjoy it. Experience the interview process because you are a hot young name with a big personality, right? You are attached to Dan Campbell, right? Who has had one wildly successful, one not so successful yet branch of the coaching tree, right? We're going to be, if the Lions need to learn one major thing between the 2024 and 2025 seasons, it is when you are a successful team, your coaches get poached and plucked and pulled away from you. How you handle that turnover, how you handle success, for lack of a better term, is how successful your team will be moving forward. So we need to start looking forward down the road for Kelvin Sheppard. And if this were to possibly happen, let's go ahead and have ourselves a grandma wagon conversation here. Now you're saying, Hattenbeard, what is a grandma wagon conversation? Well, if my grandma had been born with wheels, she'd have been a wagon, right? Therefore, if then grandma wagon statement. I got 6 coordinators. Quickly, we're just going to go ahead and skim through these bad boys, see who it is that we got that could potentially replace our guy Kelvin Sheppard, right? 6 defensive coordinator options for the Detroit Lions. If Kelvin Sheppard is hired away, if Sheppard is gone, these 6 guys would be solid replacements. Mike Payton over at A to Z Sports. Y'all, give A to Z a crack. If you're just skimming, fade out Yahoo, fade out the bigwigs. Don't click on them, bro. These dudes over at A to Z Sports, bro, they're not bad. They're not bad. Give them a chance, dude. Obviously, the Lions fired John Morton. Miami has requested to interview Kelvin Sheppard for their coach job. It's a bit of a long shot that Sheppard gets the gig since he's only been a coordinator for 1 year. And this is his first ever interview for a head coach position. But in the case that Miami hires him, here are 6 replacement candidates the Lions could go after. And I just want to say, Kelvin Sheppard has been here for the whole rebuild of the Dan Campbell era, the Dan Campbell regime, Brad Holmes regime. He does have that understanding of how to rebuild from the ground up. He's been a part of this entire thing, dude. And that does, to a point, boost him up just a little bit, being a part of this and ascending through the ranks while your defense, your positions group also ascends to it. Guys, he was the linebackers coach prior to being the defensive coordinator, right? And in Kelvin Sheppard's first year as the defensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions, and I'm going to keep taking my victory lap because in case you haven't been watching over at Hat and Beard Show, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. here at youtube.com, the live show. Make sure you're here. Check it out. Subscribe, guys. I called early on in the offseason last year that Jack Campbell was poised to have a breakout monster year, and he was going to be a Pro Bowl player, if not an All-Pro player. Well, he's first-team All-Pro this year with 176 tackles, 5 sacks, a couple of fumbles. I said Jack Campbell early on was going to be the next Brian Urlacher of the NFC North and going to be an absolute terror to the NFC for the next 5-7 years minimum. In Kelvin Sheppard's first year as the defense coordinator for the Detroit Lions. Action Jack Campbell, first team All-Pro. Who was the other linebacker that was a first team All-Pro? Oh, that's right. Jordan Brooks, the linebacker for Miami. So it's kind of a nice little mind meld blend there, but it just shows how Kelvin Sheppard has elevated his position group. As he's elevated, they have also followed suit. He does know what he's doing, at least with this positions group. I'm not going to, really hold him accountable for secondary play. But who can we get? Well, the Giants interim defensive coordinator, Charlie Bullen. Bullen's been coaching for 20 years, but he's never been a coordinator before this year, when that was the thrust into the role after the Giants fired Shane Bowen right after the Lions beat them. Not too wild about that. Not too wild about Texans defensive backs coach Dino Vasso. Right off the rip, it's not that flashy signing, right? The Lions defensive line and linebackers core are fine. What Detroit could use is a coordinator who specializes in the secondary. Well, we had that with Aaron Glenn, and I'm going to be very honest with you, New York Jets fans. Sound off in the comments if you're watching this. I'm going to be very blunt. Aaron Glenn did not coordinate a good enough defense to justify getting the head coaching opportunities that he was given. Our defense was not all that great, and it definitely wasn't even all that great in a bag of potato chips. But it was heralded because Aiden Hutchinson and Kirby Joseph were making big splash plays outside of the Aiden Hutchinson broken leg injury. But there were flashy plays, but the defense really wasn't all that great. This year, Vasso was the DB coach for the best defense in the NFL. The Texans were not just a pressure defense, they were a no-fly zone at times. Vasso has never been a DC either, but you have to understand that at this point, there aren't a lot of former DCs just hanging around. Not a lot that you'd want to hire, anyway. Broncos assistant head coach and defensive pass game, Jim Leonard. I'm all about it, but I'm pumping the brakes. What happened the last time the Lions fans shopped at a scheme game coordinator, right? Well, that'd be Johnny Mo Screens, and that didn't work out for us so well. Potentially Sean Payton's new Dan Campbell over in Denver. The former defensive back has been growing with Payton since joining the Broncos coaching staff, and the reviews for him are positive. The Cowboys have already had him for an interview, and that will not be his last. The guy's probably getting a job this cycle. He fits the Lions because of the similarities between him and Campbell, and the fact that he has a no-fly zone in Denver. The Lions desperately need that kind of thing in Detroit. Falcons defense coordinator Jeff Urbich. Yeah, that doesn't really move the needle for me too much. Former Cardinals head coach Jonathan Gannon. That moves the needle for me. This is a big fish right there. Gannon got the Eagles to the Super Bowl as a defensive coordinator. Things did not work out for him as a head coach in Arizona, but it's hard to say the defense was the reason for that. Gannon, well, actually, no, it's easy to say because Arizona's defense was like number 27th in the league this year, and you blew 17 of 20, we'll call it 20 of 30 draft picks in your tenure as Arizona on defense, including 6 of 7 picks this last year in the draft, and you still couldn't put up a top 20 defense. No. It's not the catalyst to why he was fired. There are numerous reasons, including one that's about this tall named Kyler Murray. But no, you can't say the defense wasn't the reason. The defense didn't help him at all for being a defensive coordinator. Your defense did not reflect the identity of the head coach, right? The Cowboys have interviewed him for the DC job, and the Titans have interviewed him for the head coach job. If the Lions get a shot, this is the guy you want the most. And then to promote from within, keeping with Lions tradition, Lions linebacker coach Sean Dion Hamilton. I know people would want a new deal, I know people would want new ideals if Sheppard left, but there's a lot to say for continuity. Hamilton has been on the Lions coaching staff since pretty much the whole Dan Campbell era. He even played for Campbell during that time. If anyone out there can tell you what Campbell is looking for defensively, it's this guy. Hamilton will be a DC someday. It's going to happen, but does it happen now? We'll see. This is a fun Grandma Wagon article. I'm going to be very blunt with you guys. This is not to take away from Kelvin Sheppard in the slightest. I think he is an absolutely more than qualified in a year or two guy to be a head coach. You have to really snap this defense around. And you got to make the playoffs, bud. You have to be the coordinator of a playoff team. You can't be the coordinator of a team that has one All-Pro earned, won second team All-Pro because of name recognition, although Hutch did have 14.5 sacks and led the NFL in pressures. When you stack up his sack rate to Myles Garrett or Will Anderson or even a Max Crosby at times, it's not quite the same this year. First year removed from the injury, right? Next year he should boom, especially if we make a couple of adjustments along the front seven. I'm a huge Lions fan, so obviously you guys can tell by the cotton candy on my hat. I do think that Kelvin Sheppard will be a head coach someday, but Miami, I understand the thought process. I understand where you're kind of coming from. However, this is not the time. This is not the time to be doing this. What you need to do is you need to finalize and get John Harbaugh down in Miami. That's what needs to happen down there in Miami. But, you know, it is at least good to know that despite having a down year, it feels weird saying above 500 year for the Detroit Lions is a down year, but with the Super Bowl aspirations coming off the 1 seed last year, yeah, it was a down year. It was a not successful year. You didn't even make it to the dance, right? Even though you're above 500, you didn't make it to the dance, bucko, and that ain't going to cut it, right? You got to go clean your room and be a lobster. However, it is good to see that even with us having a down year, our coordinators are still viewed as such high caliber individuals with enough pedigree that they're going to be getting head coaching interviews during the cycle. Maybe not legit interviews, but still caliber high enough, pedigree high enough to get that interview opportunity. That's pretty cool. Guys, I appreciate everything today. Make sure that you slap like on your way out the door. Drop a hype if you got it. Subscribe to the channel if you're new here. That way you can partake in the live chat Monday through Friday. Got that notification bell turned on? Do you? Ring that notification bell so you can be notified every single time we go live Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. right here at youtube.com. Come and join Mad Hatter Nation and partake in the Hat and Beard Show. I've been Hat and Beard. You've been an attentive audience. Until next time, bonga bonga. Frig off.